The cargo freighter Times Defiant Dawn Times moved slowly through the darkness of space, carrying medical supplies and food to the colony world of New Haven. Captain Han Ji-hyo sat in her command chair, watching the stars through the main window. She had made this run hundreds of times before. It was supposed to be simple. It was supposed to be safe. Then the stars disappeared. Ji-hyo sat up straight, her heart suddenly pounding. The view screen showed something impossible. Ships. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They appeared out of nowhere, blocking every direction she could see. The ships were huge and dark, with strange angles that hurt to look at. They did not look like anything humans had ever built. "Captain!" Lee Suman shouted, from the navigation station. The young woman's face had gone pale. "I'm reading 847 warships. They just appeared on all sensors. They're surrounding the entire system." Ji-hyo felt ice in her stomach. She pressed the comm button. "Dae-hyun, get up here. Now." Chief Engineer Kwon Dae-hyun arrived on the bridge 30 seconds later, still holding a wrench. He was a big man, with grease on his hands and worry in his eyes. He looked at the screen and cursed quietly. "Those are Valkyrie ships. I've seen pictures. What are they doing here?" "What? That's what I want to know," Ji-hyo said. She turned to Park Min-ho at the weapons station. The older man had fought in the border wars years ago. His hands were already moving across his controls. "Min-ho, what do we have?" Min-ho shook his head. "2 defensive lasers that haven't been used in 10 years. Some cargo containers we could maybe throw at them. Captain, we're a freighter, not a warship. If they wanted to destroy us, we'd be dead already." The comm system crackled to life. A voice came through, speaking perfect human language but with a strange accent that made every word sound like a threat. "Attention, human vessel. You will power down your engines and wait. Any attempt to flee will result in immediate destruction. This system is now under Valkyrie control." Ji-hyo grabbed the comm. "This is Captain Han Ji-hyo of the Times Defiant Dawn **. New Haven is a peaceful colony. We have no military presence here. What do you want?" The voice did not answer her question. "You have been warned. Do not move. Do not move." The channel went dead. Ji-hyo stared at the screen, watching the massive alien ships take positions around the colony world. She could see New Haven down below, a blue and green planet where 4 million humans lived. Her hands gripped the armrests of her chair. "Try to reach the colony," she told Suman. "Find out what's happening down there." Suman worked her controls, her fingers flying. "I'm getting emergency broadcasts. The colony defense force is mobilizing. They're ordering all civilian ships to evacuate through the jump gates." She looked up, her eyes wide. "Captain, there are 3 civilian transports trying to leave right now." Everyone on the bridge watched the screen. 3 small dots appeared, moving away from the planet toward the nearest jump gate. They looked so small compared to the Valkyrie warships. So helpless. The alien ships fired. The weapons made no sound in space, but the light was bright enough to hurt. The 3 transports exploded, one after another, each becoming a brief flash of light and then nothing at all. Thousands of people, gone in seconds. Medical Officer Choi Yuna had just arrived on the bridge. She made a small sound of horror, covering her mouth with both hands. "They're killing evacuees. They're killing civilians." "Lock it down," Ji-hyo said, her voice hard. She could not let her crew see her fear. "Everyone, focus. Suman, keep monitoring those broadcasts. Dae-hyun, I need to know everything this ship can do. Min-ho, get those old lasers working. I don't care if they're 50 years old." For the next hour, they watched and listened. More alien ships arrived. The Valkyrie formed a perfect blockade, covering every jump gate and every hyperspace corridor. Nothing could leave the system. Nothing could enter. New Haven was trapped. The broadcasts from the planet told a terrible story. The Velkari had sent a message to the colonial government. They called humans a contamination species. They said humanity was spreading too fast, taking too many worlds, threatening the order of the galaxy. They gave the colony 72 hours to surrender completely or face total extinction. Jihyo listened to every word. She had heard about the Velkari before. Everyone had. They controlled hundreds of worlds. Their military was ancient and powerful. They had never lost a war, and now they had decided that humanity needed to be stopped. "Captain," Daehyun said quietly, standing beside her chair. "We should run. Use the debris field near the outer planets. It's not a proper route, but this ship is small. We might slip through their sensors. And leave 4 million people to die?" Jihyo asked. "We can't fight an armada," Daehyun said. "Look at them. We have 2 lasers and a cargo hold full of medicine. They have enough firepower to crack a planet." Jihyo knew he was right. The logical choice was to run. Save themselves. But she kept thinking about those 3 transports, and all the people who had died trying to escape. She thought about the families on New Haven, huddled in their homes, knowing death was coming. She thought about her sister. 10 years ago, Jihyo's younger sister had died when raiders attacked a mining station. Jihyo had been 3 systems away, commanding a military patrol ship. By the time she arrived, everyone was dead. She had spent 10 years asking herself the same question over and over. Why wasn't she there? Why couldn't she save them? She was not going to run away again. "Suman," Jihyo said. "Pull up everything we have on local space. Old charts, surveys, anything. I want to know every way out of this system, no matter how crazy." Suman looked confused but started searching the database. 20 minutes later, Suman found something. "Captain, there's a notation here from 40 years ago. A survey ship recorded an anomaly near the edge of the system. They called it the Void Fracture. It's listed as extremely dangerous. Ships that go near it report instrument failures and spatial distortions." "Why would that help us?" Minho asked. "Because," Suman said slowly, working through the math in her head, "if it distorts space, it might connect to other areas. It might be a natural passage. Nobody ever explored it because it seemed too risky." Daehyun leaned over her shoulder, looking at the data. His eyes went wide. "That's insane. The readings show the fracture tears ships apart. The metal stress alone would rip our hull open. Could it work?" Jihyo asked. Daehyun met her eyes. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Maybe. Maybe if we reinforced the hull, if we balanced the power systems perfectly, if we flew exactly right, if we got very, very lucky." He paused. "It would probably kill us all, but it might get us through," Jihyo said. "Why do we need to get through?" Yuna asked. "Where would we go?" Jihyo stood up from her chair. She looked at each member of her crew. "We go through the fracture. We reach human military space. We bring back a fleet. We save New Haven." The bridge was quiet. Everyone stared at her. "Captain," Minho said carefully, "even if we made it through, even if we brought back help, those people only have 72 hours. We'd never make it in time. We made it from Fort Taeyang to here in 18 hours once," Jihyo said. "Remember? We pushed the engines past the red line. If we can get through that fracture, we can do it again. We can make it. The Velkari will try to stop us," Suman said. "Yes," Jihyo agreed. "They will." Daehyun crossed his arms. "This is crazy. You know that, right? We're a cargo ship. We're 5 people. They're an armada." Jihyo smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Then they'll never expect us to try." She looked at each of them again. "I'm not ordering anyone. This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to take a shuttle and hide in the asteroid belt. I understand. No judgment. But I'm making this run." Nobody moved toward the shuttle bay. Minho checked his weapons. Suman started calculating the route. Daehyun headed for engineering, already planning modifications. Yuna went to prepare the medical bay. On their Minho. Daehyun headed for Minho. Jiho sat back down in her command chair and began plotting their course to the void fracture. Outside the window, the Valkyrie Armada waited, blocking out the stars. 847 warships against one cargo freighter. They had no chance at all. But they were going to try anyway. Suman had not slept in 23 hours. Her eyes burned as she stared at the navigation computer, running calculations for the 100th time. The numbers kept changing. Space near the void fracture did not follow normal rules. Every time she thought she had a safe path, the equation fell apart. It's impossible, she whispered to herself. Then she deleted that thought and started again. Behind her, the bridge was busy with activity. Jihyo stood at the tactical display, studying the Valkyrie positions. Minho worked at his station, trying to make their ancient weapons systems functional. Through the windows, the alien armada hung in space like a dark cloud, blocking every escape route. "Captain," Minho said, "I've got the defensive lasers online. They're old, and they'll overheat fast. But they work. We have maybe 30 shots before the whole system burns out." 30 shots against 800 ships, Jihyo said quietly. Better than nothing. Down in engineering, Daehyun was performing miracles. He had pulled every cargo container from the hold and was strapping them to the outside of the ship. Some he filled with explosives. Others he reinforced with extra metal plating. The Times' defiant Dawn Times was transforming from a simple freighter into something strange and dangerous. He worked alone, welding in the cargo bay. The spacesuit was hot and uncomfortable, but he could not stop. Every minute they delayed gave the Valkyrie more time to detect their plan. His hands moved automatically. Years of experience guiding him. He had always been good at fixing impossible problems. This was just one more impossible problem. Except this time, failure meant everyone died. He thought about his sister, Admiral Kwon Ji-woo. They had not spoken in 5 years, not since their fight about him leaving the military. She had called him a coward for becoming a civilian engineer. He had called her a warmonger who only understood violence. Neither of them had apologized. If he died out here, she would never know he was sorry. Daehyun, Jihyo's voice came through the comm. "How long? Until you're done." 2 more hours, he said, not looking up from his welding. "Maybe 3. We don't have 3 hours. The Valkyrie have started launching patrol groups. 12 ships just broke off from the main fleet. They're sweeping the system. Thanks. Launching where won this." Daehyun cursed and worked faster. In the medical bay, Yuna organized her supplies with shaking hands. She was a doctor, not a soldier. She had signed onto this ship to help sick colonists, not to fight in a war. But now she prepared trauma kits and surgical equipment, knowing that combat injuries were coming. She found herself thinking about the oath she had taken. First, do no harm. But what did that mean when millions of lives were at stake? Was it harm to risk her own life trying to save others? Or was it harm to run away and let them die? The medical bay door opened. Jihyo entered, looking tired. "Scared," Yuna admitted. "I've never been in combat before. I don't know if I can handle it." Jihyo sat down on one of the medical beds. For a moment, she was not the captain. She was just another scared person. "I was in a battle once. Military transport. Before I went civilian, pirates attacked us. I was so terrified I could barely move. One of the senior officers told me something I never forgot. 24. 4. What did he say? He said courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing even when you're afraid." Jihyo met Yuna's eyes. "You're here. You're preparing to help. That's courage." Yuna nodded slowly. "What if we don't make it?" "Then we tried," Jihyo said. "That has to be enough." On the bridge, Suman suddenly sat up straight. "I have something. Captain, I need you to see this." Jihyo returned to the bridge immediately. Sumin's screen showed a complex web of calculations, trajectory lines cutting through what looked like chaos. The void fracture creates distortions, but they follow a pattern. It's irregular, but it exists. If we enter at exactly the right angle, at exactly the right speed, we might survive the passage. Might? Jihyo asked. The math says we have a 27% chance of making it through intact. Sumin looked up, her young face serious. That's the best I can do, Captain. I'm sorry. Jihyo studied the screen. 27%. That meant a 73% chance of death. The ship would probably tear apart in the fracture. They would die in the void, and no one would ever know they tried. It's good enough, Jihyo decided. Send the course to my station, Captain. Sumin said quietly. There's something else. Even if we make it through, even if we survive and reach Fort Taiyang, and even if the military agrees to help immediately, the round trip will take at least 60 hours. The Valkyrie gave New Haven 72 hours. We'll have almost no time margin for error. Then we don't make errors, Jihyo said. The comm crackled. Bridge, this is Daehyun. I'm done with the exterior modifications. The ship looks like a flying junkyard, but it's the best armor I can give you. I'm starting on the internal bracing now. Good work, Jihyo said. How long until we can fly? Give me 90 minutes. They did not have 90 minutes. Minho's sensor board lit up red. Captain, the Valkyrie patrol group has changed course. They're heading toward our position. 12 warships. Estimated arrival in 45 minutes. Jihyo felt her stomach tighten. The aliens had detected them. Maybe their power signature? Maybe their heat output? It did not matter how. They were coming. Daehyun, you have 40 minutes, Jihyo said into the comm. That's not enough time. Make it enough. She switched channels. All crew, listen carefully. We have incoming hostiles. 12 Valkyrie warships will intercept us in 40 minutes. We cannot run until Daehyun finishes the ship modifications. We cannot hide because they already know we're here. So we're going to have to fight. The bridge was silent. Minho, I need you to plan our defensive strategy. Sumin, calculate the fastest course to the void fracture once we break free. Yuna, prepare for casualties. Jihyo took a breath. And everyone, record a message for your families. Just in case. The next 30 minutes passed intense preparation. Minho identified the best positions to use their limited weapons. Sumin refined the escape course, down to the second. Yuna set up emergency medical stations throughout the ship, and everyone recorded messages. Jihyo sat alone in her quarters for 5 minutes, staring at the recording screen. What could she say? How did she explain this choice to people who would never understand? Finally, she just spoke from her heart. Mom, Dad, if you're seeing this, it means I didn't make it back. I'm sorry. I know you wanted me to stay safe after everything that happened with little sister, but I found myself in a situation where I could run or I could try to save millions of lives. I chose to try. I hope you understand. I love you both. Tell Aunt Haejin, I'm sorry I'll miss her birthday party. She ended the recording and returned to the bridge. Daehyun's voice came through the comm, strained with effort. Captain, I've done everything I can. The internal bracing is only at 60%. But we're out of time. The ship will hold together. Or it won't. I can't promise anything more. It'll be enough, Jihyo said, hoping she was right. Minho's board flashed. They're here. 12 Valkyrie hunters. Dropping out of hyperspace at 3,000 kilometers. They're arming weapons. Through the window, Jihyo could see them. Sleek, deadly ships. Each one 3 times the size of the Times Defiant Dawn asterisk. They moved with predatory grace, spreading out to surround the freighter. A voice came over the comm. The same voice from before, cold and merciless. Human vessel. You were ordered to remain stationary. You have prepared your ship for flight. This is a violation. You will be destroyed. Thanks for watching. And to know of Euro instanding Messasin. Jihyo grabbed the comm. We are a civilian cargo ship. We have medical supplies and food. We're not a military threat. All humans are a threat. The voice said. Your species spreads like a virus. You take worlds that belong to others. You refuse to accept your place. This ends now. The channel went dead. Jihyo looked at her crew. Barely out of school. Her whole life ahead of her. Minho, who just wanted to see his family again. Yuna, who had taken an oath to save lives. Daehyun, brilliant and stubborn, who had stood by her even when the plan seemed crazy. Engines to full power, Jihyo ordered. All hands. Battle stations. The Time's defiant dawn times roared to life. The old freighter shuddered as its engines burned hot. Outside, the 12 Velkari ships began their attack approach. They're targeting our engines, Minho reported. They want to disable us, not destroy us. At least not yet. Then let's not give them the chance, Jihyo said. Sumin, evasive pattern delta. Minho, the moment they're in range, fire everything. The first enemy ship opened fire. Energy weapons lit up the darkness, missing the freighter by 100 meters. Jihyo had already changed course, throwing the ship into a steep dive. Firing, Minho said. The old defensive lasers came online, spitting bolts of light at the nearest Velkari ship. The first few shots missed, but the third struck home, burning through the alien ship's shields. It was not enough to destroy it, but the enemy vessel broke off its attack run, giving them precious seconds. 1 down, 11 to go. Minho said grimly, Engineering, I need more speed. Daehyun's voice came back, nearly drowned out by the sound of straining engines. You've got everything I can give you, Captain. Any more, and we'll tear ourselves apart before the Valkyrie get the chance. Jihyo threw the ship into another turn. An explosion rocked them as an enemy shot clipped their starboard side. Alarms blared across the bridge. Hull breach, Deck 3, Sumin reported. Sealing bulkheads. They were still 40,000 kilometers from the void fracture. They had to survive until they reached it. They had to stay alive long enough to try the impossible. Jihyo gripped the controls and flew like her life depended on it. Because it did. Because all their lives depended on it. Because 4 million people on New Haven depended on it. The battle had just begun. The Time's defiant dawn times shook violently as another blast struck its hull. Sparks flew from a control panel near Sumin's station. She flinched but kept her hands steady on the navigation controls. They were running at full speed now, engines screaming, racing toward the void fracture, while 12 enemy warships pursued them. Minho, status! Jihyo shouted over the alarms. 3 enemy ships damaged, 9 still active. Minho called back. His fingers danced across the weapons console. We're down to 18 shots on the lasers. After that, we're throwing rocks. Another explosion rocked the ship. This one was closer, and Jihyo felt the deck tilt beneath her feet. Red warning lights flooded the bridge. Direct hit to port engine, Sumin reported. Power output down to 60%. We're losing speed. Jihyo checked her display. They were still 30,000 kilometers from the fracture. At their current speed, they would reach it in 8 minutes. But the Valkyrie ships were faster. They were closing the distance. Daehyun, I need that engine back, Jihyo said into the comm. For a moment, there was only static. Then Daehyun's voice came through, tight with pain. Working on it, Captain. Took some shrapnel when the engine got hit. Give me 3 minutes. You okay? I'll live. Probably. Yuna's voice cut in. I'm going down to engineering. No, Daehyun said quickly. Stay where you are. I can handle this. I need you ready for casualties. He did not say what they were all thinking. There would be casualties soon. Maybe all of them. Jihyo threw the ship into a spiral, narrowly avoiding another volley of enemy fire. The Valkyrie were not trying to destroy them anymore. They were herding them, pushing them toward a specific direction. Jihyo saw it on her tactical display, and her blood went cold. "They're corralling us," she said. "Minho, scan that sector ahead." Minho worked his sensors, then cursed. 3 Valkyrie battle cruisers waiting in ambush. Each one 10 times our size. "Captain, if we keep on this heading, we fly right into them." It was a trap. The 12 hunters were pushing them toward the kill zone, where the massive cruisers waited. The Times' defiant dawn times could maybe outrun hunters. It could never survive battle cruisers. "Sumin, alternative routes?" Jihyo asked. "None that don't take us away from the fracture," Sumin said. "We'd have to go around. And that adds 20 minutes. We don't have 20 minutes. Jihyo's mind raced. They could not go around. They could not go through. Which meant they had to do something the Valkyrie would never expect. "How close is the system's star from our current position?" she asked. Sumin looked confused. 12,000 kilometers. "But Captain, the radiation near the corona would fry our systems." "The Valkyrie systems too," Jihyo said. "Minho, can their shields handle close proximity to the star?" Minho checked his database. "Their shields are stronger than ours. But nobody flies near a star intentionally. The radiation, the heat, the magnetic fields. It's suicide. That's why they won't expect it," Jihyo said. She made her decision. "New course. We're diving into the corona." "Captain, we'll be blind in there," Sumin protested. "All our sensors will fail. We could hit a solar flare. We could drift into the photosphere itself." "Can this ship survive it?" Jihyo asked Daehyun over the comm. There was a pause. She could almost hear him doing calculations in his head. "If I reroute all non-essential power to the forward shields, and if we don't stay in longer than 90 seconds, and if we get incredibly lucky, then maybe we survive." "That's good enough," Jihyo said. "Everyone, brace for solar approach." She turned the ship hard, breaking away from the course the hunters had been pushing her toward. The Valkyrie ships reacted immediately, accelerating to cut her off. But Jihyo had already committed to the maneuver. The Times' defiant dawn times dove toward the star, accelerating into the furnace. The bridge lights dimmed as Daehyun rerouted power. Through the windows, the star grew brighter and brighter until it hurt to look at. Temperature readings climbed rapidly. "Entering corona in 5 seconds, Sumin said, her voice barely steady. 4. The ship plunged into the star's outer atmosphere. Everything went wrong at once. Every sensor shut down. The main lights failed, leaving only emergency lighting. The temperature spiked so high that the air itself seemed to burn. Through the windows, Jihyo could see nothing but white light, blazing and terrible. "I can't see anything," Sumin shouted. "Captain, we're blind." "Manual navigation," Jihyo said, fighting to keep her voice calm. "Sumin, call out the timer." "Daehyun, keep those shields up." 30 seconds in, Sumin said. "Hull temperature critical." The ship shuddered. Something exploded below decks. Alarms wailed, but Jihyo could barely hear them over the roar of the star's magnetic field. 45 seconds, Sumin called. "Forward shields at 70%. Daehyun, status?" Jihyo asked. "Shields holding," Daehyun said through gritted teeth. "But the port engine just failed completely. If the starboard goes, we're stuck in here." 60 seconds, Sumin said. "Shields at 50%. They were halfway through. Halfway to survival or halfway to death? Jihyo had no way to know. She was flying blind through a star's atmosphere in a cargo ship that was falling apart around her. This was insane. This was impossible. This was their only chance. 75 seconds, Sumin reported. "Shields at 30%. Captain, we need to exit now." "Not yet," Jihyo said. She was counting in her head, estimating their position. Give me 5 more seconds. Num. Shields at 20%. 3 more seconds. 15%, Captain. Now! Jihyo pulled hard on the controls, angling the ship up and out. Full power to engines, Daehyun. Everything we have left. The Time's defiant dawn times exploded out of the corona like a missile. The white light vanished, replaced by the black of normal space. Systems came back online. One by one. Sumin gasped with relief as her sensors activated. We made it, she whispered. We actually made it. Minho checked his tactical display. The Valkyrie hunters didn't follow us in. They're regrouping on the other side of the star. But, Captain, we bought ourselves maybe 3 minutes before they calculate our position and come after us. 3 minutes is enough, Jihyo said. How far to the fracture? 15,000 kilometers, Sumin said. At current speed, 6 minutes. But we're only running on one engine. Daehyun? Jihyo asked. The starboard engine is overheating from pushing through the corona, he replied. I can give you 4 more minutes of full power. Then it's going to shut down for cooling or explode. Your choice. We only need 4 minutes, Jihyo said. The ship raced forward. Behind them, the Valkyrie fleet was reorganizing. The 12 hunters that had been chasing them curved around the star, but they were far behind now. The ambush cruisers were too slow to intercept in time. The Time's defiant dawn times had broken through the trap. Reading the void fracture on sensors, Sumin said. It's big, Captain. The distortion field is massive. Through the window, Jihyo could see it. Space itself seemed to twist and fold, creating patterns that hurt her eyes. Reality did not work correctly, near the fracture. She could see stars in the distance that seemed to occupy multiple positions at once. Light bent in impossible directions. Minho, weapon status? Jihyo asked. We've got 7 shots left in the lasers, he said. The rest of the weapon systems are burned out. Save them. We might need them inside the fracture. Captain, the Valkyrie fleet is hailing us, Sumin said. Put it through. The voice that came over the speakers was different this time. Colder, more controlled. Human vessel. I am Lord Commander Thrave, Supreme Admiral of the Valkyrie Third Fleet. You have demonstrated remarkable survival instinct, but your flight ends here. The void fracture will destroy you more efficiently than my weapons. Jihyo grabbed the comm. We'll take our chances. You do not understand. The fracture is forbidden space. Ships that enter do not return. You will die screaming as reality tears you apart. There was something almost like respect in the alien's voice. You have fought well. Surrender now. I will grant you quick deaths instead. Tell your people something for me, Jihyo said. Tell them humans don't know how to surrender. She cut the channel and turned to her crew. They were exhausted, injured, and terrified. The ship was falling apart. They had 1 engine, 7 weapons shots, and no guarantee the fracture would not kill them instantly. But every single person on the bridge met her eyes with determination. Last chance to turn back, Jihyo said. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved toward the escape pods. Sumin, take us in, Jihyo ordered. The navigator's hands trembled as she input the course. But her voice was steady. Course laid in. Entering the void fracture in 30 seconds. Minho checked his weapons one final time. Yuna strapped herself into a seat, preparing for the worst. Daehyun's voice came over the comm from engineering. Captain, whatever happens in there, it's been an honor serving with you. The honor is mine, Jihyo said. All of you. The void fracture loomed ahead, filling the window. It looked like a wound in space, like something that should not exist. Energy crackled across its surface. Jihyo could see debris from old ships floating in its grip, torn metal that had once been vessels like theirs. 10 seconds, Sumin said. Behind them, the Valkyrie fleet watched. Hundreds of ships, holding position, refusing to follow. They thought the humans were committing suicide, They thought this was the end. 5 seconds. Ji-hyo's hands tightened on the controls. 3, 2, 1. The times defiant dawn times entered the void fracture. Reality screamed. The ship lurched sideways. Or maybe it lurched in a direction that did not exist. Ji-hyo felt her stomach twist. Through the window, she saw things that could not be real. Stars that existed in multiple places. Streams of light that flowed backward. Her own reflection in the glass. But it was wrong somehow. Like she was looking at herself from outside herself. "Sumin," she shouted. "Navigation!" But Sumin was staring at her instruments in horror. Blood was running from her nose. "The sensors are lying," she whispered. "They show we're in 3 different places at once." None of this makes sense. The ship groaned. Metal shrieked as forces that should not exist pulled in impossible directions. A control panel exploded, and Minho threw himself to the side, barely avoiding the blast. "Hull integrity failing," Daehyun reported, his voice distorted by static. "Captain, the ship is being pulled apart. They were going to die here. The void fracture was going to tear them to pieces, and the Valkyrie would never even find their bodies." But Ji-hyo looked at the twisted space around her, and something clicked in her mind. She remembered her military training. Years ago. When all your instruments fail, navigate by instinct. Trust what you feel, not what you see. The fracture was not random. It had a pattern. She just had to find it. "Daehyun, shut down all non-essential systems," she ordered. "Give me manual control only." "Captain, what are you doing?" "I'm going to fly us through by hand," Ji-hyo said. "The instruments can't read this place, but maybe I can." She gripped the controls and closed her eyes, feeling the ship respond to her touch. And in the madness of the void fracture, with reality tearing apart around her, Captain Han Ji-hyo began to navigate by pure human instinct. Inside the void fracture, time meant nothing. Ji-hyo felt like she had been flying for hours, or maybe only seconds. The ship moved through space that should not exist, and every moment threatened to tear them apart. "Sumin, talk to me," Ji-hyo called out, her eyes still closed, her hands moving the controls by feel alone. The young navigator was slumped in her chair, blood covering the front of her uniform. Yuna had already moved to her side, pressing bandages against a wound on Sumin's head. "She's hurt bad, Captain." A panel exploded. "She's losing consciousness." "No," Sumin mumbled weakly. "Still here." "Save your strength," Yuna told her, but Sumin pushed the doctor's hands away. "The captain needs navigation data," Sumin said through gritted teeth. She looked at her instruments, even though blood dripped into her eyes. "Captain, turn 3 degrees to port. There's a current in the distortion. I can feel it. Like water flowing." Ji-hyo adjusted the controls. She trusted Sumin's instincts. The young woman had an almost supernatural sense for navigation. The ship shuddered. Then suddenly, the pressure on the hull decreased slightly. "That's it," Sumin whispered. "We're in the current. Ride it, Captain." But the relief lasted only seconds. A terrible grinding sound came from below decks, metal tearing against forces that should not exist. Alarms blared across every station. "Engineering to bridge," Daehyun's voice came through, barely audible. "The hull is fracturing. Molecular bonds are coming apart. We've got maybe 90 seconds before structural collapse. 90 seconds. Ji-hyo opened her eyes and looked at the madness around her. Through the window, she could see impossible things. Ships from other times. Maybe. Or other realities. Ghost images flickering in and out of existence. And everywhere. The fracture itself, like a living thing trying to tear them apart. "Minho, can you see anything useful out there?" she asked. The weapons officer was staring at his tactical display, confusion written across his face. "Captain, my sensors show 23 different versions of us, like we're existing in multiple places at once. But one reading is stronger than the others." It's ahead of us. Maybe 5,000 kilometers. That's the exit. Jihyo realized. That's us on the other side. Already through. We just have to reach it. In 90 seconds, Minho said, while the ship falls apart. Then we fly faster. Jihyo pushed the engines, demanding more speed. The ship protested, every joint and seam screaming. But it responded. The Time's defiant dawn times had never been a fast ship, but right now it was flying like a fighter craft. 60 seconds left. Yuna worked frantically on Suman's injuries. The navigator was fading fast, her eyes losing focus. Stay with me, Yuna urged. You need to guide us through. Can't see straight. Suman mumbled. Everything's doubled. Tripled. Captain, you need to go up. Or maybe down. I don't know which way is which anymore. Jihyo looked at her own displays. Suman was right. Up and down had lost meaning in this place. Port and starboard made no sense. Every direction was every direction at once. 45 seconds. Daehyun, talk to me, Jihyo said. What's failing first? Everything, the engineer replied. But the forward hull will collapse first. You'll lose structural integrity, and will compress into a singularity. Or explode. Physics here doesn't follow rules. Can you reinforce it? Not from here. I'd have to go to the forward hull section. And that means going through areas that are already decompressing. Then don't, Jihyo ordered. Stay in engineering. There was a pause. Then Daehyun said quietly, Sorry, Captain. Orders don't mean much to dead people. The comm clicked off. Daehyun, Jihyo shouted, but he was already gone. Through the internal camera feeds, she could see him running through corridors that were twisting under the fracture's influence. Gravity failed in random patches. Air leaked from hairline cracks. But Daehyun ran anyway, carrying welding equipment and metal plates. 30 seconds. Minho suddenly gripped his station. Captain, I'm seeing something ahead. In the fracture. Something solid. The exit? Jihyo asked. No. Something else. He adjusted his sensors, trying to make sense of the readings. It's big. Really big. And it's moving toward us. Through the distorted space ahead, Jihyo saw a shape forming. It was massive and dark, with edges that seemed to cut through reality itself. At first, she thought it was a ship. Then she realized it was something older. Something that lived in the fracture. What is that? Yuna whispered. Unknown life form. Minho said, his voice tight. Readings are all over the place. It's massive. And Captain, I think it's noticed us. The creature, if it was a creature, moved through the broken space like it owned it. Tentacles or arms or something else entirely reached out. Each one big enough to crush their ship. It was coming toward them, moving impossibly fast. 20 seconds. Evasive action, Jihyo said, but there was nowhere to evade to. Every direction was the same. Every path led to the creature or to the crushing forces of the fracture itself. Suman lifted her head, fighting through her pain. Captain. Wait. Look at it. Really look. Jihyo stared at the creature. At first, it seemed chaotic, but then she saw what Suman meant. The creature moved through the distorted space easily. It knew how to navigate here. It followed paths that Jihyo's sensors could not detect. We follow it, Jihyo decided. Captain, that thing could kill us, Minho protested. The fracture is definitely killing us, Jihyo shot back. We have 15 seconds before hull collapse. I'm following the creature. Jihyo, she turned the ship, matching the creature's movements. It was not easy. The thing moved in ways that made no sense. But Jihyo had spent her whole life flying ships. She had instincts that even she did not understand. And right now, Those instincts told her to trust the creature that lived in this impossible place. 10 seconds. The creature swept through the fracture, and the time's defiant dawn times followed in its wake. Suddenly, the pressure on the hull decreased. The crushing forces that had been tearing them apart pulled back slightly. "It's creating a path," Suman gasped. "The creature is opening a channel through the distortion." "Captain, stay close to it." 5 seconds. Daehyun's voice came over the comm, strained with effort. "Got the forward hull patched. It won't hold long, but it'll hold long enough. Maybe." The creature ahead of them suddenly accelerated. Ji-hyo pushed the engines to match, demanding everything the ship had left. The times, defiant dawn times, screamed in protest. But it kept going. Behind them, the fracture was collapsing, reality sealing itself shut. 2 seconds. Through the window, Ji-hyo saw it. Normal space. Real space. Stars that existed in only one place. Light that traveled in straight lines. The exit. 1 second. The creature vanished, disappearing back into the depths of the fracture. But the path it had created remained open for just a moment longer. The times, defiant dawn times, flew toward that opening with everything it had. 0. The ship burst out of the void fracture like a cork from a bottle. Alarms blared as systems that had been failing suddenly snapped back online. Gravity stabilized. The hull stopped groaning. They were back in normal space. "Status report," Ji-hyo gasped, her hands shaking on the controls. "We made it," Minho said, disbelief in his voice. "Captain, we actually made it." Suman tried to speak but collapsed in her chair. Yuna was there instantly, checking her pulse. "She's alive, but barely. She needs real medical care, not what I can provide here." "Where are we?" Ji-hyo asked, looking at her navigation display. Minho checked his sensors. "Running position calculations now." "Captain, we're in human space. We're only 80,000 kilometers from Fort Taeyang." Ji-hyo felt something break inside her. Relief, maybe, or just exhaustion. They had done it. They had flown through the impossible and survived. Now, they just had to convince the military to help. She reached for the comm, ready to broadcast emergency codes. Then every alarm on the ship went off at once. "Multiple contacts," Minho shouted. 30 ships, moving to intercept. They're human military vessels. "Captain, they're targeting us." Of course, Ji-hyo thought. They had just appeared out of nowhere near a military base. The defense fleet thought they were enemies. "Broadcast all emergency codes," she ordered. "Tell them we're human. Tell them we need immediate help." Minho sent the signals, but the military ships kept approaching with weapons armed. Then, a voice came over the comm, cold and professional. "Unidentified vessel. You have entered restricted military space. Power down your engines immediately, or you will be destroyed." Ji-hyo grabbed the comm. "This is Captain Han Ji-hyo of the civilian freighter Times Defiant Dawn *. We are human. We need urgent assistance. New Haven colony is under attack by a Valkyrie Armada. 4 million people will die if we don't get help immediately." There was a long pause. Then the voice said, "Stand by. Enden town. Town." The military ships continued their approach, but they had not fired yet. That was something. Ji-hyo watched them on her sensors, counting the seconds. "Captain." Daehyun's voice came through the comm. He sounded exhausted. "The starboard engine just failed completely. We're dead in space. It's okay," Ji-hyo said. "We don't need to run anymore." 5 minutes passed. The longest 5 minutes of Ji-hyo's life. Then the comm crackled again. "Captain Ji-hyo, this is Admiral Kwon Ji-woo, commanding officer of Fort Taeyang Defense Fleet." There was a strange tone in the admiral's voice. "Did you just say Kwon Daehyun is on that ship?" In engineering, Daehyun froze. He had not spoken to his sister in 5 years. Now, his life, and millions of others, depended on her. Yes, Admiral, Jihyo replied. Another pause. Then Admiral Jiwoo said, "Permission to dock granted. And someone tell my idiot brother that we're having a very long conversation after this." On the bridge, Jihyo allowed herself a small smile. They had made it through the void fracture. They had reached human military space. Now, they just had to convince the Admiral to launch a counterattack against 800 Valkyrie warships. With less than 60 hours remaining, the hard part, Jihyo realized, was just beginning. The docking bay of Fort Taeyang was the most beautiful thing Jihyo had ever seen. Clean white walls, gravity that worked properly, air that did not taste like burned electronics. The moment the Times Defiant Dawn Times settled into its berth, medical teams rushed aboard. Jihyo watched them carry Sumin out on a stretcher. The young navigator was unconscious but alive. Yuna went with her, still acting as her doctor even though other medics had taken over. That was Yuna's way. She never stopped caring. "Captain Jihyo." A woman's voice, sharp with authority. Jihyo turned to see Admiral Kwon Jiwoo approaching. She was tall and lean, with gray streaking her black hair. She wore her uniform like armor. Behind her came a squad of military officers, all looking at Jihyo with suspicion. "Admiral," Jihyo said, straightening despite her exhaustion. "Thank you for allowing us to dock." "Where's my brother?" Jiwoo asked, her eyes scanning the damaged ship. As if summoned, Daehyun emerged from the engineering section. He was covered in burns and cuts, his clothes torn and bloodied. When he saw his sister, he stopped walking. For a long moment, the siblings just stared at each other. 5 years of silence stretched between them. Then Jiwoo crossed the distance and pulled him into a fierce hug. "You stupid, reckless idiot," she said, her voice breaking. "You flew through the void fracture. You could have died." Daehyun hugged her back. "I'm sorry. For everything. For the things I said." "Later," Jiwoo said, pulling away. "Right now, we have work to do." She turned to Jihyo. "You said New Haven is under attack. Tell me everything." They moved to the base command center. It was a vast room filled with tactical displays and communication stations. Dozens of officers worked at terminals, coordinating the defense fleet. When Jihyo entered, every eye turned to her. Admiral Jiwoo gestured to a holographic display. "Begin." Jihyo told them everything. The Valkyrie Armada, the blockade, the 3 transports destroyed, the 72-hour ultimatum. By the time she finished, the room was silent. 847 Valkyrie warships, one of the senior officers said slowly. "That's more firepower than we've seen in one place in 50 years. "We don't have 800 ships," another officer argued. "Fort Taeyang's entire defense fleet is only 200 vessels. Even if we committed every ship, we'd be outnumbered 4-1. "Then we don't fight them all at once," Jiwoo said. She studied the tactical display, her mind working. "Captain Jihyo, you said you came through the void fracture. That route is supposed to be impossible." "It nearly killed us," Jihyo admitted. "But it works. It's unpredictable and dangerous, but it works." Jiwoo turned to Daehyun. "Can you teach our ships to survive that passage?" Daehyun thought for a moment, then nodded. "If we reinforce their hulls properly, if we shut down non-essential systems during transit, if the navigators are good enough." "Yes, Admiral, it can be done." "How long to retrofit the fleet?" Jiwoo asked. 4 hours for basic modifications," Daehyun said. 8 hours to do it right. "You have 5 hours," Jiwoo decided. She turned to the room. "Prepare Operation Reverse Dawn. We're going to hit the Valkyrie from an angle they can't possibly expect." One of the senior officers stepped forward. "Admiral, with respect, this is insane. We're risking our entire defense fleet on an untested route through a spatial anomaly. If we lose those ships, Fort Taeyang will be defenseless. If we don't try, 4 million people die," Jiwoo said coldly. I'm not debating this. Prepare the fleet. The next 5 hours were chaos. Daehyun worked with engineering teams to retrofit every ship. Jihyo briefed navigators on what to expect in the fracture. Minho shared tactical data about the Valkyrie positions. Even Yuna, exhausted from treating Sumin, helped coordinate medical preparations for the fleet. Sumin herself woke up 3 hours into the preparations. She insisted on leaving the medical bay, despite the doctor's protests. When Jihyo found her, she was studying navigation charts with the fleet's chief navigator. "You should be resting," Jihyo said. 4 million people are depending on us," Sumin replied. Her head was bandaged, and she looked pale, but her eyes were clear. "I can rest when they're safe." Jihyo could not argue with that. Finally, the fleet was ready. 200 human warships, armed and reinforced for the impossible journey. Admiral Jiwoo stood on the bridge of her flagship, a massive battleship called the Times Storm's Edge **. Beside her, Jihyo watched the preparations from a secondary station. The Times Defiant Dawn Times was too damaged to fly, so Jihyo had been given a position as an advisor. "All ships report ready," the tactical officer announced. Jiwoo took a deep breath. "Then let's go save New Haven. All ships, follow the Times Storm's Edge Times into the void fracture." The fleet moved as one, engines burning bright. They approached the fracture, that wound in space that had nearly killed Jihyo's crew. But this time, they knew what to expect. This time, they had prepared. The Times Storm's Edge Times entered first. Jihyo felt her stomach twist as reality broke apart around them. But the reinforcements held. The ship groaned, but did not break. Behind them, one by one, the rest of the fleet followed. It was terrifying. Ships disappeared into distorted space, their forms stretching and bending. 2 vessels collided when their navigators lost orientation. 3 more suffered system failures and had to abort, turning back to normal space. But the rest kept going. Jihyo stood beside Admiral Jiwoo, watching the madness. "You're doing well," she said. "You did this in a cargo freighter," Jiwoo replied. "We're in warships, and I'm still terrified." "Being terrified is normal," Jihyo said. "Not letting it stop you is what matters." 17 minutes later, the fleet emerged from the void fracture. They appeared in the New Haven system, exactly where Jihyo had promised they would. Behind the Valkyrie Armada, in a position that should have been impossible to reach, Lord Commander Thrave was on the bridge of his flagship when the sensors detected the human fleet. For a moment, he did not believe the readings. Human ships, appearing from empty space. From a direction that had no jump gate. No hyperspace corridor. It was impossible. Then he realized what they had done. They had used the void fracture, the forbidden space that no sane species would enter, and they had brought an entire fleet through it. "All ships, defensive formation," he ordered, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. "Engage the enemy." The Battle of New Haven began. The human fleet struck hard and fast. They targeted the Valkyrie command ships first, the large vessels that coordinated the blockade. Missiles and energy weapons lit up the space between the fleets. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. The Valkyrie fought back with the skill of a military that had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their ships moved in perfect coordination. Their weapons were more advanced, but they had been caught completely unprepared, and that changed everything. Jihyo watched from the Times Storm's Edge Times as the battle unfolded. She was not a military officer, but Admiral Jiwoo had asked her to coordinate with the evacuation efforts. While the fleet fought, civilian transports began launching from New Haven, racing to escape through the gaps the military created. Valkyrie battle group breaking off to intercept evacuees, the tactical officer reported. "Detachment 3, cover those transports," Jiwoo ordered. "Do not let a single civilian ship be destroyed." The battle raged for hours. Ships on both sides were destroyed, bright flashes marking where crews had lived and died. The Valkyrie had more ships, But the humans had surprise and desperation. They fought like they had nothing to lose. Because for the people on New Haven, they did not. Slowly, the tide turned. The Valkyrie formation broke apart. Ships began retreating, pulling back from the planet. Lord Commander Thrave watched his perfect blockade fall apart and knew he had been beaten. Not by superior technology, not by greater numbers, but by humans who refused to accept defeat. All ships, withdraw, he ordered finally. We retreat to the outer system. 12. The human fleet pressed their advantage. More Valkyrie ships were destroyed as they tried to escape. By the time the battle ended, 342 alien vessels had been destroyed or disabled. The humans had lost 67 ships, each one carrying hundreds of crew members. But New Haven was saved. On the planet's surface, evacuation continued through the night. 3.8 million people were loaded onto transports and sent to safety. The remaining population sheltered in place while human military ships established defensive positions. The Valkyrie Armada retreated beyond the system's edge, nursing their wounds. A week later, Jihyo stood on the observation deck of Fort Taiyang, looking out at a new ship. It was a frigate, sleek and fast, painted the same blue-gray as her old freighter. Across its hull, someone had painted a name. Asterisk. Defiant Dawn 2. Asterisk. It's yours, Admiral Jiwoo said, walking up beside her. Command approved it. You and your crew will map the void fracture. Find more routes. Give us a tactical advantage. What about the original time's Defiant Dawn asterisk? Jihyo asked. Being preserved as a museum ship? Jiwoo said with a smile. People want to see the cargo freighter that saved a world. Jihyo laughed softly. It was never about the ship. It was about the people. Behind them, those people approached. Daehyun, his burns treated and healing. Sumin, walking with a slight limp, but otherwise recovered. Minho, carrying his gear and ready to serve on another impossible mission. The new ship needs a crew, Jihyo said to them. Interested? Wouldn't miss it, Daehyun said. Someone has to keep you from crashing, Sumin added. Better than retirement, Minho agreed. Yuna just smiled. Try leaving without me. They boarded the Time's Defiant Dawn 2 times together. The new ship was faster and tougher than their old freighter, equipped with military-grade sensors and weapons. But as Jihyo sat in the captain's chair and felt the familiar presence of her crew around her, she knew the ship did not matter. They could have flown anything. They could have faced any enemy, because they had proven something that the Valkyrie had not understood. Something that made humanity special among the stars. Humans did not win because they were stronger or smarter or more advanced. They won because they looked at impossible situations and tried anyway. They won because they adapted when others would have broken. They won because a single ship, crewed by 5 ordinary people, could change the fate of millions. The Time's Defiant Dawn 2 times launched from Fort Taiyang, heading toward the void fracture. There were more routes to map, more impossible things to attempt, more challenges that everyone said could not be overcome. Jihyo smiled as the ship jumped to hyperspace. Let them say it was impossible. Humans had never cared about that word. They would prove it wrong, one impossible victory at a time. Far away, in Valkyrie space, military strategists studied the Battle of New Haven. They analyzed the tactics. They calculated the losses, and slowly, reluctantly, they came to a conclusion that would reshape galactic politics forever. Humans were not to be underestimated. They were not the strongest species, not the oldest, not the most advanced. But they possessed something that made them dangerous beyond measure. They had the courage to try the impossible, the adaptability to survive anything, and the absolute refusal to give up. The galaxy was about to learn what that meant, and it would never be the same.